So I'm sure we have all heard and used the phrase once in a blue moon. Usually this is to describe something that rarely happens, we occasionally dibble and dabble in, but usually when there's an actual blue moon, we may grab our manifestations, our rituals, we may do some spell work, some shadow work, all of our little witchy things to take advantage of the energy of the blue moon. But in Pensacola, Florida in 2015, a man decided to take advantage of the blue moon in a different way. He decided to sacrifice his entire family. This is the story of the Blue Moon Killer, Donald Hartung. Hey y'all, I'm BlaqueWitchYaya. Did y'all enjoy the new intro? I was trying to act normal, but did y'all like it? Okay, but let me get serious because we have to go back in time, but not too far. July 31st, 2015, where Escabia County Sheriff's Office, I hope I'm saying that. I know I'm not. Escabia, it sounds like a disease. I hate that name. But Escabia County Sheriff's Office received a phone call requesting a welfare check for the Smith family. This call occurred because Richard Smith, who was Donald Hartung's half-brother, the murderer, so Richard is his half-brother. Richard worked for Homeland Security at a naval base in Pensacola, Florida. He worked in cryptics. He had a very important role, but he was missing from work for a couple of days. The last time his employees seen him was July 28th. So he had a very important role. So when he was missing from work for a few days, his coworkers got concerned because he had an important role. He was a good worker and it wasn't like him to do a no call, no show. So on July 31st, his coworkers were like, look, something must be wrong because we haven't seen him since July 28th. So that's when they placed a call to the sheriff's office to do a welfare check. Now, Richard lives on Deerfield Drive, which he lives with his brother, John Smith, who is special needs and works at a local Walmart, and his mother, Von Smith. So Donald, being the half-brother, he worked as a security guard at a hospital, but he didn't live with the family. Like I mentioned, they were half-siblings, so we'll find out what's going on with that later. But he didn't live with the family, but he didn't live too far away, just a few houses down, and every Tuesday he would come visit his family to cook for his mother. So along with those weekly visits, July 28th was a Tuesday. No one has seen Donald since July 28th as well. So now it's July 31st. The officers are conducting a welfare check. They're making their way around the house, going up the driveway, looking through windows. They're knocking. No one is answering. So they do a search in the database to see are there any relatives nearby. And of course, they find Donald, who didn't stay too far away. They called him to the home to let them know. We're conducting a welfare check. Your brother has been missing from work for a few days. We just need permission to enter the home. So Donald gave them permission to enter the home. So upon entering the home, everything looked pretty normal, we can say. Von Smith, the mother, she lost her husband, and many people believe from that loss and during her grieving, she became a hoarder. So when you walked into the home, it looked like a normal hoarder house, just stuff all over the place, gotta walk over stuff, maybe a clean alleyway just to get by. So everything looked relatively normal until they seen some limbs sticking out of piles of clothes. And while uncovering these piles of clothes and blankets stacked on top of each other in 3 different piles, they found John Smith, Richard Smith, and Von Smith slaughtered. Warning, this may get a little graphic, so if you're eating, I may have to talk to you later. Richard Smith was shot in the head and stabbed in the throat. John Smith was found sitting in a chair in front of a TV with a stab wound to his throat and wounds on the top of his head, which indicated an attack from behind, resulting in blunt force trauma, and the impact was most likely from a hammer. There was a trail of blood that made investigators believe that the mom's body was dragged between rooms. She was found beaten in the head with a slashed throat. And like I said before, they were found under piles of clothes, which didn't stand out at first due to the condition of the home. As you can see, stuff is just everywhere, boxes and piles of corners, just very disorganized. So if you were to walk into this home, you wouldn't immediately see dead bodies as you would if you walked into a home that's a little bit more organized. And along with the bodies, there was oddly a lot of $1 bills that were found as well. So this event was made public, and now an investigation is going on. People are hearing about it on the news. So of course, usually in this type of situation, the sheriff will make a statement. In this case, Sheriff Morgan made a statement, but not one that people would expect when hearing about a triple murder. He basically wrapped up everything and said, yeah, it's witchcraft. And you may be wondering, where in the world did he get this idea from? He stated that there have been several murders that have been taking place during this time frame of the blue moon. During their investigation and search of the home, they found several different witchcraft, pagan related items, Ouija boards, spell books, tarot cards, sigils, all of the witchy things that you can think of.
Initial research has led us to believe that there's a potential that it was a ritualistic killing. The method of the murder, blunt force trauma, slit throats, positions of bodies, and then our person of interest has some ties to a faith and or religion that is indicative of that. Those of you that follow any of that will also note that the time of death, we believe, on Tuesday also coincides with what's referred to as a blue moon, which occurs every 3 years. It's witchcraft. I'll say that right now.
So now that we have heard from Sheriff Morgan, let's take a minute and pause and actually talk about what is a blue moon. First, let me clear up. A blue moon is not actually blue. It's the second full moon that takes place within a calendar month. You guys know usually we get one full moon per month. So the blue moon only occurs every 2 to 3 years. But you don't have to wait 2 to 3 years to get your moon nugget. I like to call it the leopard light crystal. You can get this from BlaqueWitchYaya.com today. I'll have that link down below. But every 2 to 3 years, we'll get 2 full moons that takes place within 1 month. And that second full moon is called a blue moon. And there's actually one coming up this week on August 30th, depending on when you're watching this. But there's one taking place this week on August 30th, 2023 at 9:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'll have a video in detail on some things you can do for the blue moon. But on a spiritual level, it's a great time to set intentions, rituals to enhance your intuition. You may notice that you start discovering the truth in a lot of stuff around the time of a blue moon that may hurt your feelings. It's a time to manifest abundance, get in touch with your feminine side, enhance your knowledge, your wisdom, being able to connect with spirit and how spirit communicates with you. So this is a really good time if you want to do a reading on yourself, any self-work. You'll really be in tune with your intuition, your self-knowledge, and your higher self. So with moon phases, the energy starts to present itself 3 days before, and the energy lingers 3 days after. So sometimes if you miss a certain moon, don't worry if you could catch it the next day or the day after, because that energy is still present, which explains why this crime didn't technically happen on the day of the full moon, but a few days before. Some people do their spell work and rituals to align with the blue moon. They may start 3 days before, so the spell work or the rituals is already activated and working, especially if you're burning candles. So it's already burning going into the blue moon. And it seems that's what Donald did in this story. He started his work a little bit earlier. Even some of the investigators are having the same belief as Sheriff Morgan, thinking that this is witchcraft due to just all the stuff that they found. The timing is no coincidence of when this murder took place, and along with all the other murders that took place as well. You know, they say crazy things happen underneath the full moon, and it seems that this has manifested in Pensacola. So some investigators are starting to have the same belief as well, so much so that they kind of jumped the gun with explaining what happened. Mind you, this is new to them, so they're trying to explain a spiritual ritual. And this is coming from someone who probably doesn't even understand spirituality. So they're like, yep, look at all this crazy witch stuff we found. This right here is a blue moon ritualistic sacrifice done by a witch, which is Donald. So that makes Donald a blue moon killer. So you got to watch out for these blue moon killers. Like, they're just going down this tangent trying to explain what was going on, but they just made that up and didn't have any tangible proof that this is actually something that occurs. Susan Randolph Smith, which is a high priestess within the Wicca community, the set with these accusations that the investigators shared, they thought that they were just make a mockery of their practice, just making fun of what they do. She tried to explain that this is not even within our practice, and other witches in the community spoke out against this as well. And they also explained human sacrifice doesn't even exist in the practice. It's forbidden. It's looked down upon.
As witches, we don't do human sacrifice. It's strictly prohibited.
Which I get. And I understand their frustration because we already have a stereotype against us where everyone thinks that we're just about to put spells on them and just do voodoo on them because they think we do this for fun. And sometimes it's like, girl, you really think I'm about to put a spell on you? What do you have that I want that I can't manifest myself? But that's a different point. And sometimes it makes you wonder, like, okay, what movies have you been watching? Because, baby. And a lot of people, even if they weren't witches, they understood that. They believed that Sheriff Morgan was trying to sensationalize this investigation because he was up for re-election. So how good would it sound in Florida, the Bible Belt, with all these Christians, if they found out that their sheriff caught a witch that committed a murder? How proud would that make them? So that would be considered an easy vote. So many people thought they were trying to dramatize the situation. So they would think, oh my God, Sheriff Morgan caught a witch, our Christian hero. God bless you. So since Donald was the last person to see his family alive, that made him the #1 suspect. Donald claimed that he knew his family died because, of course, he let the sheriff's department in, so he was able to see what they see with his family being dead. But he didn't think they were murdered. Which I'm thinking, you thought they just died and just spirits came and covered them with blankets and clothes? Like, obviously someone murdered them. And again, with the Wicca material that was found in his home, that made him a suspect as well. While other investigators believe that he did this for financial gain because he wasn't in his mother's will and felt excluded from the family. Like I mentioned before, these Richard Smith and John Smith were his half siblings, so that can sometimes create a separation. And the will stated the following: I hereby give, devise, and bequeath to my husband Richard A. Smith, providing he will survive me. But if he does not survive me, then an equal share to my 2 sons, Richard Thomas Smith and John William Smith, to be theirs absolutely. I intentionally make no provision herein to benefit of my son Donald Wayne Hartung, not for lack of love or affection, but because he has sufficient assets on his own. So she intentionally put, I don't want to give him not a thing. But they still had to uncover both sides. First, Donald was questioned about his spiritual beliefs.
A Ouija board and some stuff in your house?
I do have a Ouija board.
Are you Wiccan or?
Yeah, I'm a Wiccan.
You are?
I've been a Wiccan for about 3 years.
What is that?
It's a pagan religion. It's based on nature.
Does it have to do with like moon phases and stuff like that?
Yes, it does. There's a lot to do with moon phase.
That Wiccan stuff, and these ceremonies or whatever you do you have anything like sacrifices or anything?
No, there's no sacrifices.
When there's two full moons, sometimes they'll offer a sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, I don't offer sacrifices ever.
What kind of person do you think you're faced with something like that?
A maniac. Somebody that's out of their mind crazy.
And even with this intense interrogation, 2 months later, no one was arrested. But 2 months later, conveniently enough, around Halloween of 2015, Donald Hartung was charged with 3 counts of premeditated murder. One of the reasons it was premeditated was because he sought some answers before his actions. He wanted to know, should I kill them? Should I not kill them? So he didn't speak to a psychiatrist, which he should have. He asked his Ouija board, and I guess the Ouija board said, yes, you should. And along with that, something else that was suspect, he randomly decided to take down the cameras in his mother's home, which were initially installed because she had a bad fall and she hurt herself. I believe she burned herself. So they put up cameras just so when they're not home, they could keep an eye on her to make sure she's okay. But randomly, he decided, you know what? I don't think we need these cameras anymore. And he threw them away in the trash can in the home. And along with that, in that same trash can was cigarette butts with his DNA on it. And along with his DNA being found on the cigarette, it was found a little bit all over the place. But you may be thinking he went over there every Tuesday. So of course his DNA is going to be all over the place because he was cooking. He was probably moving stuff around the house, probably trying to help clean up. But his DNA was found on odd places, like under his half-brother's Richard's belt, on Richard's checkbook, and other random places that someone wouldn't naturally touch on a daily basis. So now the trial begins in 2020. So the prosecution initially found it hard to base this entire stance on this was a ritual for the blue moon. So they decided to take a more financial approach where they had tangible evidence that would be the motive behind Donald committing these murders.
You will see the last will and testament of Von Seal Smith. His mother left everything to his two brothers, John and Richard. She specifically excluded him from her will. And what you will see during the course of this trial through evidence is that for him to get anything, they all three had to die.
So let's get into some of the people who made statements during the trial. First, we're going to talk about, I'll call him the nosy neighbor. The investigators had a few questions for the people in the neighborhood. One who had the most information was the nosy neighbor who lives directly across from the Smith family. He knew everybody in the neighborhood, who had family visiting, who kids were coming back in town from college, what time people leave for work. He knew all the tea in the neighborhood. So he told investigators the night everything happened, he noticed two disturbing things. One, Donald didn't have his dog with him, and usually every Tuesday when he comes to cook for his mother, he brings his dog as well. And he usually leaves around 5:30 or 6, but that night he didn't leave until his half-brother Richard got home from work. And usually he likes to leave before his brother gets home because they don't get along that well, so he tries to avoid him. They looked at CCTV footage of him leaving work the day he was killed, and he was found leaving the building at 6:36 p.m. So Donald left well after his usual time. And the nosy neighbor noticed something else. When he did leave, he left with his headlights off as if he didn't want to catch anyone's attention with him driving away.
Now, would you see Donald Hartung, who you now know as Donald Hartung, would you see him go over to the Smith family house pretty regularly?
On Tuesdays.
Do you remember the day that police, fire department, EMS came to the Smith house?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you home that day?
Yes, I was.
And do you remember the date itself?
It was July the 31st, Friday morning.
What was the sequence of events on the 28th?
I actually saw RT leave for work. My dressing room looks out onto their driveway. But then, like I said, early afternoon, I saw Mr. Hartung arrive, and then later on, I saw RT come home, and then I saw Mr. Hartung leave.
Now, was it normal or abnormal to see RT come home while Hartung was still at the house?
It was not usual. Usually, Mr. Hartung was gone before RT came home.
Now, once RT came home and Hartung left on that Tuesday, did you see anyone at the Smith home until police arrived on July 31st?
No, I did not see anyone at the home.
Were you and your wife home those 3 days before police arrived?
Yes, we were home.
Someone else who made a statement was Donald's cellmate when he was in jail, Marlon. Him and Marlon both had a lot in common. Donald beating his family members with a hammer. The cellmate was convicted for beating his girlfriend with a hammer. Donald was into Wicca. Marlon was into voodoo, so he said. While exchanging information, Marlon decided to write a letter to investigators, sharing information that he was able to get out of Donald. The investigators were a little iffy with this letter because they know a lot of times inmates will try to give out information that may not be true to get some leniency on their time or to be considered good behavior and may get some favoritism while in jail. So they just thought he probably just wants some time off his sentence. We can't believe this. Until they began reading the letter. He mentioned in the letter how Donald covered up the bodies with clothes and blankets, and he turned up the heat in the house to keep the bodies warm as long as possible to throw off the time of death. Because, you know, they do the time of death based off the body temperature. How long would it take the body to get down to that temperature? But with the body staying heated for a longer amount of time, it seemed it would elongate the time of death, removing it from the day that he was last seen there to the following day where no one else seen him there. And that's actually an approach that the defense tried to use. Like, there's no way the family could have died on the 28th. According to their body temperature, they had to die on the 29th, and Donald wasn't there on the 29th. But that was later dismissed because Richard, like I said, he was caught on camera leaving work. He was wearing a certain outfit, and when he died, he was wearing that same outfit. So it showed that it had to be on that same day. So the investigators knew Marlon was telling the truth when he mentioned this part, because during this time that the letter was received, it was not made public about the time of death being an issue due to the body temperature. No one else knew that besides the investigators, so they knew that that information had to come straight from Donald. And along in the letter, Marlon shared, yep, he's mad at his mom because she's left out the will. He hurt her pinky finger because he was torturing her, trying to get the code to the safe. Like, he was sharing details that only the investigators knew, so they knew that he would be a good person to make a statement during the trial.
Did he tell you anything about what his relationship was like with his mother?
He said he hated his mother because the way she treated him different from the other boys.
Did he say why?
And they had different daddies.
Any other reasons he was upset with his mom?
Yeah, and she left him out the will. That really made him mad, he said.
So if he was mad at his mom, why not just kill his mom? Why the two brothers?
Because the money would go to the brothers because he was never in the will.
Mr. Hartung tell you if his family had money?
Yeah.
Okay, what did he tell you?
He told me the brothers' granddaddy had worked at Goodyear. And you know what I'm saying? And the granddaddy left them a lot of money, left the daddy a lot of money. When the daddy passed, the sons them got the money and stuff.
Okay. Now, did he tell you any details about the day the murders actually happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what did he tell you? Did he tell you when he went over there?
Yeah, he went on up like 11 o'clock, something like that.
Okay. And do you know what day?
He said on a Tuesday. He always go there on a Tuesday.
He said he always goes there on a Tuesday?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
And when he went over there on the Tuesday, did he tell you what he did?
Okay, so he first said when he went over there, he said he left his dog, Zena, because he know what he was going to do. So he left the dog over there. Then he went over there and cooked.
Okay. Did he tell you what he cooked?
He said he cooked chicken and corn, I think string beans or something like that, and biscuits.
Okay. And after he cooked, did he tell you what he did?
Okay, he said he went and took some cameras down because his mother got hurt one time. She fell, and I guess the brother Richard had installed some cameras. He took them down.
Okay. All right. And did he say if the family ate or not?
Say it again? Yeah, they ate.
Okay. And then what happened after they ate?
He said he killed his brother after that,
Okay.
which is John.
I'm sorry?
He killed his brother, John.
Okay. Did he tell you how he killed his brother, John?
He said he hit him in the head from behind and cut his throat.
Did he tell you what he hit him with?
I think he said a hammer. I can't recall.
And then did you say he slit his throat?
He said he cut his throat.
Cut his throat.
Yeah.
Did he tell you where John was when this happened?
He said it was like in a den watching TV.
Did he tell you what he did after he did that to John?
He went to his mother, then he tortured her so she can tell the combination for the safes and stuff.
He said he tortured her, I'm sorry?
He tortured her.
How?
He cut her left pinky finger so he can tell the combination for the safes and stuff.
Okay. And did he say if he got the combinations to the safe?
Yeah, she told him where it was in a black purse.
Okay. And did he say what else he did to his mom?
Then he said he hit her in the head and slit her throat. We was talking about voodoo, Wicca and stuff like that. He believed in Wicca, and I told him I believe in voodoo.
Now, did you actually believe in voodoo?
No, ma'am.
So of course this made the defense nervous. They were running out of tricks to pull, so they were aiming for a mistrial. Their entire method was aiming for a mistrial, making it seem like Marlon, the inmate, is just making stuff up. He's an inmate. Who can believe him? Obviously, he's in jail now for lying. What makes you think that he's not lying now? He's a liar. We can't believe him. And for the nosy neighbor, okay, we all know nosy neighbors, but is it possible that they know that much detail about what's going on where he can recall all this specific information? It seems a little too specific. So how do we know that this isn't rehearsed? How do we know that he's not in on it? How do we know that he doesn't know who murdered him? Mind you, this was happening in 2020. So how is he remembering something that happened in 2015? So clearly, if it's not lines that he's just going over. So they were trying to poke holes in every scenario and statement, but that wasn't a success because the jury found Donald Hartung guilty. But he didn't go down without a fight. During his sentencing, Donald was like, listen, you all have been tricked, hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok, and led astray.
Your Honor, I would like to respectfully ask for a mistrial. I love my jury. They paid attention. They paid close attention. But Your Honor, they were duped. You were duped. I was duped and I was tricked, and I'm willing to admit it. And so were you.
Donald was later sentenced to 3 life sentences, and he is currently at the Graceville Correctional Facility in Jackson County, Florida. While doing research for this story, surprisingly, a lot of people believe that Donald is innocent, especially with the things brought up from the defense stating with his DNA being found on Richard's checkbook. Like, the house is a mess. We're sure everything is all over the place. If he's coming there to cook, y'all found the checkbook on the counter, he probably moved it out the way so he can cook. The house is a mess, so of course he's going to have to touch random things and just little details. A lot of people think that he is innocent and he did not kill his family. We know that the mother and Donald did not get along, not sure why. Usually in family cases like this, the mother probably doesn't like the father, so she takes it out on the son. And maybe Donald got so pissed off with being left out of the family, he probably felt he was used because he was still coming over every Tuesday to cook. So he just got fed up and decided to lash out on them, thinking, I'm coming over here to cook for you and you're leaving me out the will. I don't want to help none of y'all. And then in the will, everyone had to die in order for Donald to get anything. So maybe he just took matters into his own hands. You guys believe that it was a sacrifice or a ritual? For me, if it was, you didn't do it right, because you shouldn't be in jail. For me, I don't think so, because I am a firm believer in free will. I believe the time we are born and the time we die are already written out, and it can't be altered or changed. I don't feel like in spirituality anyone should try to play God with ending someone's life. So I feel like this was just a man being selfish, wanting to kill his family, and it just so happened to happen on the blue moon. Maybe he did it on the blue moon because he thought he would get away with it if he did some spell work behind it. So maybe he attempted to use the spells in order to cover it. But I don't know. You guys let me know what you think down below. He is still alive today in Florida. Surprisingly, as crazy as Florida is, I'm surprised this is my first Florida story. Because it is weird over here. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. And like I always say, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Until next time, you guys, I shade.